Hello and welcome to this week's webinar. I'm so glad to have you all on here. We have a larger group this session, so I hope that you are able to chat in any questions that you have, share your feedback. It's all so important to us. Today is a really fun topic. We're going to be discussing, well, first, look before you leave. I hope you enjoyed our Indiana Jones influence graphic here. We're going to talk about looking before you leave. Specifically identifying the pitfalls before they happen to help you get your data more effectively. We have a very special guest with us today as well. His name is Alex Christensen. You may have worked with him before or heard him on calls, as you've called him. He's our support manager here and so amazing. He was teasing me earlier today that pitfalls is my pitfall word because I always seem to mispronounce it. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, thanks, George. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk about these pitfalls and how to avoid them.
We're going to be discussing top 3 treasures specifically. One is switching your agents from IE to Chrome, handling error agents, as well as capturing a list properly. Alex, tell us where these came. Where did we find these questions?
Yeah, so like Georgia said, I'm the support manager, and we have been getting a lot of questions specifically about this first one, switching agents from IE to Chrome. We're going to dive into a little bit of the background behind this question and why we're recommending you switch to Chrome. But we just want it to be a smooth transition for everyone. And then handling error agents. If you have been a regular Mozilla user, you know that errors are pretty regular in the world of web scraping.
Yeah, they're opportunities. They help us learn and get better data, right?
Exactly. And so we want to make sure that you're well equipped to handle them, don't get frustrated. And then capturing a list is just one of the most basic functionalities that we want to make sure everyone understands.
When we're switching to Chrome, there's 3 questions that were asked, which is why make the switch and how to transfer my agents and make it seamless, as well as any tips or tricks for that transition. And to understand why we're switching, we're going to dive back in time to a family tree as well. Before we jump into that, one of the reasons is that when we have the Chromium engine, which is in the builder, you're using a supported engine that's on your web browsers. Your site will render more correctly, it'll be more stable, and it's more fun, right, Alex? It's fun.
Yeah, building agents, we always want it to be fun. It's kind of like an adventure, like Indiana Jones, discovering those treasure chest data. And with the IE builder, it's getting a little less fun, so we need to make a change.
Yeah, and it takes work. Agent building is really powerful. It's not always easy. When we're talking about the engine that's supported, that was one of the main reasons we wanted to encourage the switch. We're going back in time to this beautiful family tree of web browsing. There are 3 main engines that are used. One was created by Microsoft, which is this Internet Explorer over here on the far right. We have one created by Google, which is Chrome. And this one is created by Netscape, which is using Mozilla. With these platforms, they experienced a loss. On January 12th, 2016, the Trident engine created by Microsoft was not supported anymore. One of the benefits of the engine that was created by Google was that it had an open source so that multiple programs could be and companies could use their source for Chromium, which allows for more reliability for your websites that you're building. So our browser family lost a valuable member, but because of the open source that's provided on both of these platforms with Mozilla and Chromium, Microsoft created another browser called Microsoft Edge. This is using that same Chromium engine. And we were talking about the market share as far as what it means as far as data scraping. And what this means for you and what you need to take from this is that because we're using a majority share of what websites are being built on with this Chromium engine, and we're matching that same foundation, your sites are going to render more appropriately and correctly inside the builder. So as though we'll mourn the loss of our beloved Internet Explorer, we'll embrace the fact that we have a new engine that's That's pretty slick. And learning how to switch. The first things first is you need to update your builder, open your agent, test it, and then save your agent. We're going to go through each one of these so that you feel comfortable as the process goes. This is the Chromium browser inside the builder. So if yours is opening like this, then you're in luck. You have the Chromium builder. If yours is still this blue color, this is representing the Trident engine or the Internet Explorer version. To update this, we're going to select this File button up here in the top left, go to Settings, and check the beta browser. Once you do this, it will ask you to restart now, which you will, and it will open up to this beautiful Chromium browser.
And one word I want to mention on that, Georgia, is if you have an agent in IE that's been running great, you want to make the switch to Chromium to get the faster experience, better experience, you can open up an agent and do those same steps. File, settings, beta browser. When it restarts, it will actually take the agent that you have open and it will restart it in the new Chromium browser.
I love that. That's so good to know, though, so that if I am working on a project inside the Internet Explorer version and I do those same steps, it's not going to delete my agent. It's just going to keep those same steps, but have it be running on a different engine on the back end.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly what will happen.
And that goes, so if I'm transitioning those agents from Internet Explorer to Chromium, will you explain some of those steps if there's something specific I need to do for those? A lot of the configuration is just taking place once you save them, right?
Yeah, a lot of the configuration saved when you save it, but there are several kind of gotchas to keep an eye on. One of them is XPath sensitivity. In IE, in that version, XPaths are not case sensitive. So if you're looking in the HTML of the website in IE, and there's capitalized letters or lowercase letters in an XPath, the agent builder in IE doesn't really matter on how you write the XPaths, but in Chrome it is case sensitive. And so that's probably the biggest gotcha when it comes to switching agents. And the best way to know if you're plagued by that error is by testing your agent.
I love that this is a treasure here. This is one of the best treasures that we can find. It's one of those orange gems in the photo, because when you do switch it over, these element not found, or if there are those messages, it can be fixed pretty simplistically by reassigning those as well as rewriting XPath. This does take extra effort, but knowing that little subtlety between the capitalization is so important. One way that we can see if your browser, what agents are using Internet Explorer as their configuration versus the Chromium, is in your browser. If you log into your web console, there's this configuration box, which will tell you not only if you have notifications on, if it's going to run on a schedule, but also which engine it's using to run its agents, this agent on. So we have Chromium here, we have Internet Explorer, and Alex actually taught me this trick coming up is we can create a browser view. Using a custom view, we can create a view that shows you which agents are still running on Internet Explorer versus those that are running on Chromium, which helps switching it become a lot more manageable. You can see slowly as you transfer those over.
Yeah, and the main reason for this, and that I want to bring it up, is because if you have an account with us and you only have 10 agents, it's not really that difficult to see how many IE agents you still want to transfer over, but several of our customers have thousands of agents, and so creating a view and adding a new field called browser type allows you to export and run reports and specify or narrow it down to exactly the agents you want to transfer over.
And if views is a new topic for you, I like to think of views as my folders that I can organize all of my agents. So instead of using the folder tab up there on the original dashboard, just by switching to my views, I'm able to get there. We're going to walk through that specifically. One thing I really want to focus with everyone is when you transition your agents over, always, always, always test your agents. You're going to learn so much about these what's happening and what's not. So we're going to jump in really quick to walk through how you would create that view as well as how to transition this computer.
All right. Pull this open. And so the main way, so we're going to start by looking at creating that new view. So up here, we're going to click on our gear icon. This is our list of views. We're going to click on this gear icon. We're going to go to edit our view. And we're going to scroll down until we find our browser type. You have it already selected. By default, it's not selected, and so you'll have to scroll down. These are all in alphabetical order. And go to criteria.
So let's go back to that column heading. So if there's anything that you want to view specifically that's a system field, perhaps it's the last run date, or you need to know the source name or the limit, the web page credits, you can mark any of those to include in your final export. We're just going to be focusing on the browser type, which is listed at the top. It's pretty easy to find. So we can see the browser type as well as the builder version there.
Mm-hmm. And so next we're going to go over to our criteria. And we have some criteria in here already. Just going to come in here. We're going to choose browser type. And let's say we only want to see the ones that are in Internet Explorer. So we're going to say contains Internet Explorer.
Is that specific how we need to write that with the format?
Yeah, so you can do equals or contains. Equals is going to have, it has to be exactly spelled correctly with all the same white space, with space between here if that's needed. So once we hit add skills here, we can save. We should see it update. Here, looks like I got my space wrong. Internet Explorer. So it looks like we need to change the criteria to be an or.
So I added a lot of different filters because I have quite a few agents in here. If you're just adding this to all of your agents, you won't need to have that many filters. Maybe we can try this on the ones that on like a completely new view and remove the ones that I have there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So we'll just call this Internet Explorer Agents. And we'll come down and we'll just select several of these.
Sometimes I like when things don't work for us too, because we're not superheroes. We all go through the same process when it comes to troubleshooting as well as building the same, building our same information.
It's true. So here's our view. Browser type over here. Edit it, and let's just change the. Let's do browser type equals Internet. Oops. Internet Explorer. So that should take us down.
Beautiful.
These 6 agents. So that's the first thing we wanted to show you. And now we'll go in and we're going to change this agent Airbnb from IE to Chrome. And you can see, it's in IE because it's listed here. So we have it open.
When we were loading this in, it took a good minute and a half to load it in, which we've worked in using the Chromium browser for so long. We both sat here for a minute like, oh my goodness, like switching to Chromium has been so much more fun as far as building. So you can see it is taking a little bit more time to load, which is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, as Georgia was saying that, I thought it would be valuable to actually see how long it's going to take. And then we're going to see that it's working just fine. All the captures are set up correctly. We're just scraping, you can see some dates and then title, price per night, rating of the location. Some of these results.
This is a big website as well. It's pretty dynamic. We're able to search for a lot of variables. So if you have similar sites to this where you're loading in a lot of information, being able to make sure that it's working well is important. A lot of the agents that you're building are pivotal to your company. So going through, opening an IE, testing it, And then when you switch it, testing it once again is going to be so valuable, especially as you're making this transition.
Exactly. And so now we have this agent and we're just going to switch it to Chromium and we'll go through the steps that Georgia just mentioned.
So file settings.
Beta browser.
Perfect.
We're going to hit save and we're going to restart now. So you can see it closed the builder and it's going to reopen it. We're going to see that dark gray, almost black color. And one thing I just want to point out is the speed. You can see it's already to the page. It's going to be executing some actions, but we're going to run into some errors. And so you can see our dates is not being found anymore, and our begin item list isn't being found anymore. So the
this would stress me out. If I was first switching this over and I saw all of this, I would be having a heart attack. I don't know if you guys have had that moment where you hold up an agent and then there's red and then you just get a little bit nervous. So walking through this, if these are all red, what would be the first thing to do?
The first thing I would do is first visually look for the items that you want to capture and make sure they're still there. And so I built this agent so I know that this is what I'm looking to capture as far as dates, and the title list is just going to be going through our list of results here. So I know both of them are still there.
Okay.
And so I'm going to open up our XPath window, and here's our XPath. It's mostly generated. It looks like a fine XPath, but it's not being found. And so let's just try an easy way to, I'm going to add an alternate location first so that we can see the differences.
Interesting.
So I'm going to click add alternate location. I'm going to click on March 16th, 20th. And it added these two new ones. And so look at the differences between those two. They look identical as far as, the words and the number of characters and everything, except you can see that that's a capital I, this is a capital B, and that's really the only difference. Because this takes us back to one of the first points we hit in our PowerPoint, in that it's case sensitive now. And so it needs the case sensitivity to pick up the right location in HTML.
That is so helpful to see. So now we've reassigned this. We added an alternate, and we can see the differences there. We could either just reassign that, or we could delete those first two.
Yeah. And so if I just reassigned it, you can see it removed the first two and put that in there.
Okay.
And so the same thing's gonna go for this big item list. Let's come down here, and you can see that all of these actions inside them are also missing. An interesting thing about capture list is that oftentimes if the XPath for the big item list is off, then all the subsequent actions are also going to be off. Which also means, which is nice, is that if you fix the big item list XPath, usually the rest of them will be fixed automatically.
That's helpful. So like as a more introduction user, if I wasn't comfortable writing my own XPath, I could right-click reassign this begin item list title list. And if you were more comfortable with XPath, then you would write a new starting XPath for that begin item capture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
Exactly. So I just clicked on reassign, and I want just to notice the ID down here, FNP-target, and then we go to our path. I'm just gonna click here, come down here, click here, and you can see.
Capitalization.
Again, capitalization. And you would be surprised, like it seems really simple, but you'd be surprised at how many websites that this is really the only problem. It seems like it's a bigger problem when you have 3 or 4 pages of actions and you're logging into a website and there's page list actions that are there, and just a really complicated agent can seem very, very daunting, when really all you need to do is go through and reassign 5 actions and everything works flawlessly.
One thing that is interesting with this particular agent is we have more than just one capture here. We have the title list, we have the title, night, rating, location, and dates, and all of those showed red as if there was an error. But we were able to reassign just 2 of them. Some of them we need to refine a little bit more to change the format, and maybe we'll need to write a custom XPath for dates specifically. because it's not showing. But after doing that, it's just, we were able to build our agent. Oh, interesting.
And so it
Okay.
looks like this is another difference that could exist between IE and Chrome. The refinement that we needed to put on IE is not the same refinement we need in Chrome. And so I just removed this space and hit save again, and it's going to load it just fine. And so now our actions look good. Let's give it a test, just like Georgia said. And we should see it pull everything in just fine. If we hit errors, then that's going to be, we have another step to go just to continue troubleshooting. You can see that we're waiting for 5 seconds up there. That was probably necessary in Airbnb, in Internet Explorer, because Internet Explorer loads a little bit slower. We could probably get rid of those 5 seconds now that we're in Chrome, because everything's loading much faster. And then that's just 5 seconds, 5 plus seconds.
Do you keep this pretty high?
Yeah, I usually leave that at default because it's not going to wait that total time every time. It's just going to wait up to it if there's some problem loading.
And this is helpful when the site is pretty large and dynamic. Okay, awesome. So we can save that, remove those wait seconds. We have this beautiful agent that has been built. And now we can save this because we're able to get all of our data.
Yep.
And let's see, I wonder in the web console, this is going to change a little bit.
Yeah, so now you can see this little message, upgrading it. Save it, and then we should see that little icon that George is so excited to see.
I am really excited.
That little E is a thing of the past.
Respectfully. That's right.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. There it is. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so in a nutshell, and you can see that it's no longer in our view. That's specifically narrowed down to Internet Explorer agents. I have like 5 left.
Perfect.
And so in a nutshell, that's going to be how you switch your agents from IE to Chrome. If you encounter like much bigger problems besides just reassigning locations and case sensitivity, then feel free to reach out to our support team and we'll help you out.
Love it. Now on to our next topic, which is handling errors. This is something that we all get asked a lot about is, well, errors are opportunities. So it's an opportunity for us to either refine our data, refine our agent building process, and get better information. So we're going to cover 3 of these topics or subjects within here, which is where to look, what is happening, and what to do when this happens. Identifying where to look can be in 2 different portions. One is in the builder as you're testing, but the second one is in the web console when an error occurs. You'll receive this error message. Hopefully it will stop depending on your harvesting settings. And then there's this eye over here that gives you more information on what is happening. This says an item could not be found on the page. If I wanted to get more detail, then from this jobs drop-down, originally it says data. I could select jobs, click on the error job, and then see exactly what error happened. Underneath this error detail, this tells me where it was on the page. When I first was introduced to this, all I thought to myself was, this is really great to know if you know what you're doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to break down this structure. So something to keep in mind, or which helped me, is knowing the error message. If an item could not be found on the page, that can be an indicator to me that where I pointed to, there wasn't information. The website updated something, or maybe the website is going through maintenance. So those are some things that I thought about with the error message. With the error detail, this is giving you the name of the capture that it hit the error. If it's a website error, then it wouldn't list this, it would say it's a website error. But understanding that each component can help you think about different things. When you check the web console to identify the error, you may need to open it inside the builder to see exactly what's happening. A lot of times if you click this fix agent, it will open the agent directly to the page that is hitting an error. So let's go through what is happening. We built an agent to get from point A to point B. There's many people who you're building your agent for the first time and running it. Others are taking over a project that was built by somebody else. You still need to get to point A to point B. Your understanding of that project may be limited, and so it'll be hard to know what path to take to get to this point B. I like to compare it to our little buddy just jumping in midair. Sometimes it hits an error and it feels like you are not going to make it. We actually had a customer email in and asked if we could throw him a rope because he didn't look like he was going to be able to make it, which was pretty fun. Alex, these are some of the tips that you and I came up together of how we can troubleshoot our agents and help when these agents do hit an error. How have these helped you when you're working on the support cases or when your team is working on them as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that I know most people listening are familiar with the words XPath and regex, but that's really just kind of a means to an end. The real troubleshooting skills are necessary. The real skills that you need are the first one and then the last one. Just like George was saying, when you know your objective, when you know the manual process that you're trying to follow, that's the most helpful information you can have. And so that's one of the things that when we get calls in our support department, we take a step back, or we try to, and we say, all right, what is this agent supposed to be doing? What's the desired outcome? And then, we walk through it, usually just in Google Chrome, not even using Mozinda, just saying, okay, if we were to do this manually, what are the steps we're going to go through? And a large majority of the time, just going through those steps, we can see, oh, okay, this manual process makes sense. Let's look at Mozinda. Oh, we're missing a click item here. These steps in Mozinda they're just manual steps that get automated by computers, but we're missing a step here. Like we need to click on this, or we're capturing something that should be captured later in the agent. And along with that, getting creative. If a manual process that you identify gets a little bit too complicated or a little bit too hairy, or is a little bit too far of a gap to jump over, going back to our little graphic, then it might be really useful to get a little creative and say, okay, I know I want this price, but let's see if this price is located somewhere else in HTML or somewhere else in my manual process. It simplifies it a little bit.
One of my favorite experiences was going through a training with a team member, and they were having the hardest time capturing the list of locations, and the website was just formatted poorly. And I had looked at that website hundreds of times, and they came back to me and said, I found a different location of where it's all located. If I navigate to a different page, I can load it in a prettier format and get the information. So I love that comparison of getting creative and knowing your objective. Because you could write XPath and regular expression all day long, but if you don't have an objective in mind, it won't be helpful.
Exactly. And sometimes you have a good objective, you figure out your manual process, and you still do need to write XPath. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help you learn that. And once you get that under your belt, you can really tackle your website.
Walking through your agent step by step is what you mentioned. If you can't do it manually, then there's not going to be a way to automate it. Knowing your limits as far as that goes, if you can't see it on the website, if you aren't able to find it, then it's likely that the computer is not going to be able to find it too. We're training these little bots to go get your information. So the better we train them on the process, the easier it will be. So we're going to practice this a little bit as it comes to identifying the errors in our agents and then troubleshooting them specifically. This has hit an error, so I'm going to open this agent specifically. This is the same process that our support team goes through. And I think that is valuable to know When I first began building, it felt like I would just open it up and I'd just say, there's an error. There's nothing I can do. Like, I don't know where to go from here. But seeing if there's any items that were collected, there weren't any items here, and an item could not be found on a page. If I hover over this eye, it tells me it was on the first page. If I select from this drop down to go to my jobs, I'll select that specifically and be able to see that the element was not found, an item could not be found on the page. If you want to take this up a notch, you can look in your harvesting settings to see if you have this set to stop and stop. If you have a website that is going to hit more errors or it takes a longer time, maybe you want it to postpone and continue to practice running. In this case, I like mine to stop. We're going to fix this agent. And this will open it up in the builder.
And while this is opening, one thing I want to mention about those error handling settings, there's not a clear cut, like these are the error handling settings you need to set up on an agent. It's all going to be depending on the agent. The first time through, when you first build an agent, we recommend you put both those to stop and stop so that you can see exactly what's happening. But just like George said, it may turn out that you need to use the postpone. Optimizing those. It's a little bit time consuming, but in the end, it's going to be much better for you.
Thank you for that. As you are, sorry, my computer hit a little bump and it just closed up for a minute. I think as well, being able to know, so as I open this agent, I see that I have this begin item list isn't working. I can identify what exactly I need to select. If I'm not sure exactly what I'm selecting, then I won't be able to troubleshoot this very well. So if I go to my location and then reassign the location, I can select what I'd like and then reassign this as well.
And this may seem like a really simple fix and that, you know, we fabricated it, but it really does come down to some of these simple fixes, because websites can update, you know, really quite a bit. Just so you guys know, Mozinda releases an update every Tuesday. Yeah. And we update our system, we make some improvements, we fix bugs. And so if we update every Tuesday, some big websites are most likely updating on a regular basis as well.
I was going to mention when you said error handling, a lot of times this is an internal discussion that happens between you and your team of what you guys would like to do. So we hit another error, so this is something that we'll need to troubleshoot as well. I want to spend some more time. You have an example that you'd like to go through as well of ways that we can capture our list more effectively. So let me pull that up so we can see exactly what that is. So one of the key questions we're asked is, how do I capture a list? And capture a list is the language that we use inside of Mozinda. A lot of times the way that it's phrased to us is, how do I have this loop? How do I have this continue? This can be with a list of products. I've seen this be with a click more button that's on a page that continually shows there, and we need it to click through on those. One of the things you mentioned, the skill to talk through logistically of what's happening. And I feel like that comes into play when we have a list in an agent.
Yeah, and so here in this example, you can see we have a big item list that is capturing some board shorts on Billabong's website. And you can see it starts, has a capture shorts, capture price, capture color variations, and then it ends. And so what that is really signifying, and if we run through the logic here, we'll do it as an example here in a second, but it's gonna step by step through every single pair of shorts that our big item list finds, and it's gonna capture them. And you can see that click item, the design of this agent is that we want to click into every single pair of shorts. This is purposefully an incorrect structure. The click item should be on the inside of the list because the action needs to be looping on every single pair of shorts. And so, yeah, you can see the arrow, the click item needs to be on the inside of the list so that it's applied to every single pair of shorts. And on the right, you can see that's what it should look like. And so it's going to capture the shorts, price, color variations, and it's going to click. And if I wanted to make that a little bit better, I would even label that click item and call it, you know, clicks on item or clicks on details. And so we have an example.
One thing is when you first showed this to me, I was looking at it and I immediately thought, what is this click item doing? How is this related to everything else? Because if it's going to page 2 to do features, this is only executing one action. So thinking through the logic, the more you work with it, the better it will become.
And so here is the results, or here are the results for that agent with the incorrect structure. And so you can see there's a couple things going on here. You can see the shorts name, that's good. The price, $69.95. The price is being repeated the whole time. That's just something we should kind of notice.
That is interesting.
Keep in the back of our mind. Color variation looks good. Features is blank.
That's a treasure, seeing that price being duplicated. Because so many times our agents will run well, and then we think we have all of our data, but then information is either duplicated and we export it. Maybe we export it to our boss and we're like, this is it, I did it, it's amazing. But we don't want that to happen. So validating your data, looking at it to see if there's duplicates here is so important.
Yeah, and really at the end of the day, Mozenda is a really good servant. It's going to do exactly what we tell it to do. And sometimes that comes and gets us. It bites us a little bit. And so we need to make sure we tell it to do the right steps.
So I love that we looked through our results here. So we had a repeating price, no features.
And then we see at the very end, we have one feature that's captured, but nothing else. So let's open this up and see if we can figure out exactly what's going on. If this was my agent and I was looking at this, I'd say, hang on, like my output does not look correct. Like in the back of my mind, I might be saying like I need to call Mozilla support, but I'm gonna take a look at this before I call them because I know they're gonna make me walk through the steps again. So I'm just gonna see if it's something that logistically makes sense. And so as this is loading, you can see it's the same agent. And sometimes it's hard to see how it iterates through every single item because it goes so fast. But let's just wait until it finishes.
One of the tips for troubleshooting is to watch your agent test. Because if it isn't able to find something while you're testing, it will stop on that item.
Exactly. Yep, that's true. And so we can see here, I'm going to add just 1 second of wait time, just so we can see how it actually runs through. I'm going to test it, and we're going to see that it's just going to iterate through this begin item list, those 3 actions, and it's never going to hit that click item until the very end. We won't test all the way to the end.
And so look to see where it's at. On the left-hand side on your action list, it will be highlighted in that dark yellow to show where it is currently.
So you can see this is exactly the behavior we're seeing and noticing in the web console.
But it never went to page 2.
Because it's looping, and it starts the loop here on the begin item list and ends the loop here at the end list before we even get to this click item. And so the actual behavior here is it's going to loop through all the items at the very end, and then it's going to do it 1 click item that clicks on the first item, and then it's going to go to page 2 and scrape those features. And so let's pull this in to here, and I'm going to take off this wait time, and now we're going to test it. And again, I don't want you to get hung up on kind of the simplicity of these examples, because the same thing goes for multi-page agents. You know, an agent that has 4 or 5 pages, or an agent that has several actions, you know, 10, 20 actions on page 1. the logic has to make sense and it has to be clean and sound if the agent's going to work.
If it helps, there's times when you have nested lists. You have a list inside of a list. A way to identify if that's going to be a good fit for your agent is once you see end list, that is when it's going to print the data. So that is when the first line is going to be printed. So if there's multiple lists that you need to receive and you nest them inside of each other, it will print at the last end list listed.
It's kind of complicated to explain, but if you see that in your agent and you want an explanation with a hands-on example, you can always call our support team.
That looks beautiful. The only thing we have left is that price that keeps repeating.
So I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but this is a little treasure that I wanted to put in this agent so you could all see. So I'm going to click on XPath, and you can see that for a begin item list, our shorts list, there's our XPath. It's fine and everything, nothing wrong with it, it's great. Click on shorts, and we have this period. And some of you may know what a period means. It simply means that it's a relative action, meaning as we go through this list, this action is dependent on begin item list XPath. And so if we click on color variations, we'll see the same thing. It starts with a period, and so you can essentially stick this XPath on the end of the begin item list XPath to get the exact result. But this price capture, it doesn't start with a dot or anything like that. It starts with 2 slashes, which means that it's an absolute capture, meaning that no matter what item we're really on in this loop, this capture action is essentially saying I'm ignoring the loop and I'm just going to capture the same price every single time, which is this first item. Sometimes this will happen in Mozinda, and so one thing you can try is just to reassign it, or you'll have to write your own XPath. So let me just show you. I'm going to reassign current location, click right there, and you can see that it changes it drastically. It starts with 2 periods, and if we look at our Capture preview, our price is now changing.
There's a lot that are like named similarly, so it gave my eyes a trick for a minute.
Yeah. Definitely takes a trained eye to see a lot of these errors. And so that's really everything. Next step, we would save it and we would then run it, and we would get the same results that we got here in the builder.
If you have one of those click more actions that is repetitive on the page, where in order to load more information, you need to click more, we can trick the begin item list to implement that. One of those ways is by having a begin item, click item, and then deleting all of these captures inside of it, and then having a separate list afterwards. This begin item list would be instructed to just click on that click item. If there's something that you want to learn more about, please feel free to chat in or submit any questions that you have, because we'd love to go through that with you. We do have some time for Q&A, and some of the questions that were chatted was, how can I stay informed about my errors, or if there's blank lines of data?
That's a great question. And I think it's really smart, because going into building agents and using Mozinda, it's good to have a plan. It's good to know, because you're not going to have perfect agents that never hit errors. You're going to experience errors. And so having that plan is really useful. And you can actually have an agent send you an email when it stops with an error, or when it finishes successfully. There's a couple different criteria that you can tell it to send you an email if it meets. Yep, so under notifications, there's those boxes and settings that you can have it send emails for. And you can put multiple emails in there. All you need to do is separate them by commas. And that's a great way to kind of stay on top of your agents. Also using error handling settings to stop the job instead of ignore. One of the things that is important to know is that by default, agents don't have the stop and stop. By default, this is the settings that are
attempt to ignore the error and continue for agent errors, and let the system decide what to do for website errors. Like we mentioned earlier, those very well might be the correct error handling settings to use for an agent. But if you want to have absolute control, we recommend switching it to stop and stop, and then turning on, an email notification.
One of the other ways is as you're building your agents, if there's an element that's not found inside your build, say I'm looking for the sales price and not every single item has a sales price, or not every item has an email address listed, I can have an error handle to a new page, which would give it an opportunity to have a new set of steps and could send me an error message. For example, in our build here, if it didn't have any features, instead of setting this as optional, I could go into my properties and specify that if this received no information, so it went to the spot I told it to, but it didn't capture any information, I want it to throw an error. That's one setting you could implement while you're testing, as well as saying, if I'm not able to find these features, I want it to go to a new page. And I want it to throw an error message. Maybe it's in the same field where I say no features available at that time, or I can say error message here. This is great if you're searching through some URLs and you know that some of them are going to throw a 404 error, then you can have it capture that error without having to go through having it just ignore those. You can receive the actual error message.
Exactly. And we have another question that came in. These are some good questions, Tori.
Yeah, they are. Thank you guys for submitting those.
The question is there a specific fix, specific error message?
That is such a good question. And I think that the answer is there's not a direct fix, because you do have there's so many different websites and so many things that could be happening on them. There are specific tactics that you can implement again and again to diagnose it and to fix it. So not an A plus B equals C, but A plus these options can equal your final result.
Yeah, and that's probably, exactly what Georgia said is right.
Thank you guys all so much for joining in today's session. I wanted you guys to rest easy tonight after our session together, to know that he does make it to the other side. I hope that you feel like the skills and the topics that we discussed today were able to help you on your journey of agent building. Whatever questions or ideas you have, please let us know what they are. Your feedback is so important to us. We want these to be related to what you need specifically. So please leave a comment below. This will be posted on our YouTube, so you'll have this as a reference, as well as a copy of this will be sent to you who have registered for the webinar. Again, leave any comments, email in, chat in. We're so glad that you were all able to join with us today, and we hope that you enjoy your leap year, this weekend.
Oh boy.
Once every 4 years. So thank you all for joining, and I hope you guys have a lovely day.